At my dad's funeral, my brother leaned over the casket and muttered just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "She's just here for the money. Dad was gonna cut her off." His words hit harder than the sound of the rain tapping against the chapel windows. Heads turned. Eyes followed me. I could feel the judgment crawling across my skin. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor beside the coffin that held the man who once promised I'd always have a home. Cole stood tall beside the casket, chin high like he'd just delivered a eulogy instead of an accusation. The whispers started immediately, polite murmurs wrapped in pity and poison. I hadn't seen most of these people in years, not since Dad threw me out for refusing to marry the business partner's son. Now they looked at me like I was the scandal, not the daughter mourning her father. I was about to walk out when the door creaked open. In walked Mr. Rennick, Dad's old lawyer, holding a sub sandwich in one hand and a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. It was absurd, so absurd the room fell silent. He didn't apologize for being late. He didn't even glance at Cole. He set the sandwich down on the pew, opened the laptop and said, "Walter wanted this played today." The lights dimmed slightly as the screen flickered. My heart pounded. Then there he was. My father's face filled the screen, older and thinner than I remembered, eyes sharp even in death. The room went still. Someone gasped. Then he spoke, voice steady, familiar, haunting. "You betrayed me." 3 words. That was it. Gasps rippled through the mourners. My brother's expression cracked, just for a second, before he forced a smirk. I stood frozen, staring at the screen as if my father could still see me. "What the hell is this?" Cole barked, but no one answered. Mr. Rennick just closed the laptop slowly and said, "There's more." My breath caught. More. I didn't know what my father had planned, but one thing was clear. Whatever truth he buried before dying was about to come alive right here in front of everyone who thought they knew the Drayton family. I grew up in a house where silence was louder than love. The Draytons didn't talk about feelings. We talked about image, money, and who we were seen with at charity galas. My father, Walter Drayton, wore his reputation like armor. He built everything from nothing, and he reminded us of that every morning over breakfast. That we were a legacy, not a family. Cole fit perfectly into that world. Even as a kid, he knew how to charm a room. He could lie with a smile and make people thank him for it. Dad adored him for that. "That boy's a born leader," he used to say, clapping Cole's shoulder. Then he'd look at me, the quiet one who liked books, not parties, and his smile would fade. "You'll understand business one day, Leah." I never did. I understood honesty, loyalty, decency, qualities that never made it onto Dad's checklist. When I turned 23, Dad introduced me to a man twice my age. A strategic match, he called it. The man's father owned a company Dad wanted to merge with. "You'll thank me when you're living in a mansion," Dad said. I remember laughing, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. When I told him I wouldn't marry for a contract, the world I'd known collapsed in a single night. He stood in the doorway of my room as I packed, his voice cold and controlled. "You're no longer my daughter if you walk out that door." Cole stood behind him, silent, watching with that same smug calm he always wore when someone else took the fall. I walked out anyway. Years passed without a word from them. Every headline about the Drayton Empire had Cole's face on it. Smiling, polished, the golden son who carried Dad's dreams forward. Meanwhile, I learned to live small, away from the spotlight. I worked double shifts, paid my own rent, and tried not to miss the family that never really existed. Still, every now and then I'd see their photo in a paper or a business article. Walter and Cole shaking hands, untouchable. And I'd feel that familiar ache in my chest, the kind that never fully fades when the people who raised you taught you everything except how to be loved. The years blurred together, long shifts and quiet apartments replacing the noise of the mansion I once called home. Nursing wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every paycheck barely covered rent, yet it gave me something Dad's world never did: purpose. Sometimes, between charting vitals and cleaning wounds, I'd imagine him sitting in his office, proud of Cole's headlines, pretending I never existed. Then one night, near the end of a double shift, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it until a shaky voice whispered, "Leah, it's Miriam, your father's caretaker. You should come soon." The line went dead before I could ask anything else. I don't know what made me drive there in the middle of a thunderstorm. Habit, guilt, or the stubborn hope that maybe he'd changed. The roads were slick, lightning splitting the sky, and every mile felt like driving back into a life I'd already buried. The mansion loomed in the distance, lights dim except for one upstairs window. I stepped inside without knocking. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Miriam met me at the door, her eyes red. "He's awake," she whispered. I followed her up the stairs, my heart pounding louder than the thunder. Dad looked smaller than I remembered. The man who once filled a room with his presence now lay surrounded by machines that breathed for him. His eyes fluttered open when I spoke his name. For a moment neither of us said anything. "You shouldn't have come," he rasped. His voice cracked like brittle glass. I tried to stay strong, but the words spilled out, years of anger and silence tumbling together. "You kicked me out, Dad. You chose Cole, the company, everything but me." He closed his eyes. "I made mistakes," he said finally. "Cole isn't what I thought he was." The regret in his voice sounded real, but there was something else beneath it: fear. He reached for my hand, but his grip was weak. "There are things you don't know, Leah. Things I should have told you." Before he could finish, the machines beeped faster. Miriam rushed in shouting for help. I stood frozen as nurses pushed past me, my father's words echoing in my head, unfinished, heavy and haunting. The call came 2 days later. Walter Drayton was gone. No tears came, just a strange emptiness that settled in my chest. I drove to the estate again, this time under clear skies that felt too calm for what waited inside. Cole greeted me at the door like a stranger. Polite smile, cold eyes. "You don't need to be here," he said. "Everything's handled." Handled. That word sent a chill through me. Mr. Rennick sat in the study, papers spread across the mahogany desk. He looked smaller, older, fingers trembling as he adjusted his glasses. When I asked about the will, he avoided my gaze. "There was an update," he muttered. "Your father made changes before he passed." Cole cut in before I could respond. "Dad knew where his loyalty was." "You walked away, Leah. Don't act surprised." He slid a stack of documents toward me, all legal, all neat, all too perfect. According to them, everything went to him. No mention of me. Not a single line. I stared at Mr. Rennick. "You've known my father for 20 years. You really believe he'd erase his daughter?" He shifted in his chair, eyes darting to Cole. "It's what he signed," he said softly. But something in his voice cracked. That night I couldn't sleep. I wandered the halls of the mansion, memories pressing in from every corner. The air smelled like dust and secrets. I ended up outside my father's office, the one room Cole kept locked since the funeral. But Dad's desk key had always been hidden behind the portrait of his first property deed. I reached behind it, and there it was. The drawer creaked open, papers rustling inside. And there, beneath a stack of ledgers, was a thick envelope sealed with red wax. Across the front, in my father's precise handwriting, were the words, "To be played after my funeral." My hands shook as I held it. Every instinct told me Cole had something to do with this missing will. Dad had known it was coming, he'd prepared for it. The realization hit me hard. Whatever truth he left behind, it wasn't meant for Cole to find. It was meant for me. The air inside the chapel was heavy, thick with perfume and tension. Everyone sat rigid, waiting. Mr. Rennick stood near the casket, laptop open, his voice trembling slightly as he spoke. "Walter Drayton requested this be shown to his family, and only today." No one moved. Even Cole stopped pretending to comfort the guests. The screen flickered to life. My father's face appeared, pale but steady, his eyes sharp despite the illness that had drained him. The room went completely silent. For a moment I could almost forget the bitterness between us. Then he spoke. 3 words. "You betrayed me." A gasp broke the stillness. Someone whispered a prayer. I felt my stomach twist, not from guilt, but from knowing he wasn't talking about me. Dad's tone was calm, deliberate, like he knew exactly who those words were meant for. Cole's smirk faltered. He leaned forward, his jaw tight. The murmurs grew louder. Mr. Rennick hesitated, but the video continued. My father's voice filled the room again, colder now. "I built a legacy from nothing. I taught you loyalty, honesty, and duty. One of you turned it into greed." His eyes seemed to shift as if staring through the screen straight at us. "The truth will come out. Only the rightful heir will claim what's mine." Whispers spread like wildfire. "What does that mean?" someone muttered. Cole stood abruptly, face flushed. "Turn that off." "This is nonsense," he barked, but no one moved. The video cut off suddenly, leaving a frozen image of my father's stern expression on the screen. Mr. Rennick closed the laptop slowly, his hand shaking. "That's all he left for public viewing," he said. The room buzzed with confusion, everyone speculating, piecing together what they thought they knew about the Draytons. Cole turned toward me, his glare sharp enough to cut through the silence. "You had something to do with this," he hissed under his breath. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. And in that moment I knew whatever my father had hidden, it wasn't over. The message wasn't just a farewell. It was the beginning of something he planned long before he died. I couldn't shake the image of my father's face on that screen. "You betrayed me." The words kept echoing in my mind long after everyone left the chapel. Something inside me refused to let it rest. That night I returned to the estate, the halls quiet except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. I started searching, not for closure but for proof. In the study I combed through drawers, files, ledgers. Hours passed before I found a locked cabinet behind the bookshelf. Inside were folders marked with company initials, transfer records, and electronic payment trails. I scrolled through the digital copies on the office computer, and froze. There it was. Large sums moved from the firm's accounts to offshore holdings just days before Dad died. All approved under Cole's signature. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. This wasn't grief anymore. It was betrayal carved in numbers. My father hadn't been paranoid. He'd seen this coming. The next morning I drove to see Miriam, the caretaker who had called me before everything fell apart. She opened the door before I even knocked, her eyes tired but kind. "He told me you'd come," she said softly. She led me inside, reached under a stack of folded linens, and handed me a small silver USB drive. "He made me promise to give this only to you." Back in my car I plugged it into my laptop. The screen filled with dated video files, each labeled in my father's handwriting. My breath caught as the first one played. He sat at his desk, thinner than I remembered, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this, Leah, then the truth needs light." One by one the recordings revealed everything. Cole altering contracts, forging Walter's signature, manipulating the board. In one clip, Dad confronted him but Cole laughed, called it protecting the family name. My father's voice in the final video trembled. "He thinks power makes him untouchable. But integrity will expose him." When the last file ended I sat in silence, tears burning behind my eyes. He had left a trail, a path meant for me to follow. And for the first time I understood. My father hadn't just left a message. He'd left a mission. I went back to the house on Ridgeway Lane just after dusk, headlights sweeping across the tall iron gates that hadn't opened for me in years. The air felt heavier there, as if the walls themselves still carried my father's voice. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. I knew exactly what I was looking for now. Something my father had hidden deeper than any document Cole thought he controlled. The office door groaned as I pushed it open. The same faint scent of cigar smoke lingered in the air. I knelt by the old oak desk and ran my hand along the underside until my fingers brushed a notch. A small drawer clicked open, locked tight. It took a letter opener and sheer determination to pry it loose. Inside was a folder, edges yellowed, stamped with a notary seal. My heart pounded as I unfolded the papers. It was the original will, signed, dated, and naming me as executor and primary heir. Before I could even process it, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Cole's voice cut through the silence, sharp and furious. "I knew you couldn't stay away." He stood in the doorway, face twisted with anger. "You think you can just walk in here and steal what's mine?" I clutched the folder to my chest. "It was never yours, Cole. You forged everything." Dad knew. His eyes flickered, a mix of fear and rage, before he lunged toward me. The papers scattered across the floor as we struggled, his hands gripping my wrist hard enough to leave bruises. "You're ruining everything Dad built," he shouted. I shoved him back and grabbed the will, sprinting toward the hall. Behind me I heard glass shatter. He'd thrown something, maybe the computer, maybe the hard drive. The evidence my father left behind was gone, destroyed in seconds. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking, heart hammering so loud I could barely breathe. I glanced back once. The house glowed faintly through the rain, a monument to lies finally cracking at its foundation. I pressed the folder against the seat beside me, whispering under my breath, "You won't bury this, Cole. Not this time." Then I drove off into the dark, carrying the truth he never wanted found. I found Mr. Rennick in his downtown office the next morning, blinds drawn, the smell of cold coffee lingering in the air. He looked startled when he saw me, as if he'd been expecting someone else. His usual calm demeanor was gone. His hands trembled when he reached for his briefcase. "We need to talk," I said, placing the will on his desk. His eyes darted toward it like it was something radioactive. "So it's true," he whispered. "You found it." "Cole tried to destroy it," I said quietly. "But this was never his to control." "You helped him, didn't you?" He exhaled shakily, sinking into his chair. "He didn't give me a choice. He threatened to expose my firm, ruin everything. I thought your father's final wishes were already clear. I was wrong." For the first time I saw guilt in his eyes, not fear. He unlocked a drawer and pulled out a small sealed envelope, the paper yellowed at the edges. "Walter left this with me. He said I'd know when to hand it over." He hesitated, then slid it across the desk. "I believe now is that time." I opened it carefully. Inside was a single handwritten note in my father's distinct script and a signed legal addendum. The note read, "If you're reading this, Leah, I trust you know what to do. Blood means nothing without integrity." My throat tightened. The addendum detailed the transfer of final authority to me, a safeguard against fraud in case the original will was tampered with. Rennick rubbed his temples. "I should have protected this," he murmured. "Your father trusted me." I stood, clutching the documents. "Then make it right," I said. "Help me file this, officially." By afternoon, the courthouse clerk stamped the papers, each thud of the seal echoing like a heartbeat. The truth was no longer hidden. It was on record, undeniable. I stepped outside into the cool air, the city humming around me, and for the first time since Dad's death, I felt something close to peace. Cole could spin lies, destroy evidence, even threaten me, but he couldn't erase the law now standing against him. My father's words burned in my mind as I walked away. Integrity over blood. This was never just about inheritance. It was about setting his legacy free from the rot that had poisoned it. The funeral home felt colder than before, every eye fixed on the long mahogany table where Mr. Rennick placed a stack of freshly sealed documents. The air was thick with curiosity and tension. Relatives whispered, expecting more drama. Cole sat across from me, his jaw tight, pretending confidence he didn't have. I kept my hands folded, silent, waiting. Mr. Rennick cleared his throat. "As per Walter Drayton's explicit instructions, this will be a formal public reading. The uncut recording will now be played." His assistant dimmed the lights and the screen lit up once more with my father's face. The same footage, but this time there was no abrupt ending. Walter's voice was calm, but the weariness in his tone was unmistakable. "If you're hearing this, then truth matters more than image now," he began. The video shifted. The next scene made the entire room gasp. Cole appeared on screen, standing over Walter's hospital bed, laughing. "You won't even know what's signed," he said in the recording, waving papers in front of him. Walter tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Cole's words were clear. "I built this empire, not you. You're just the name." The silence in the room was suffocating. People turned to look at Cole, his face drained of color. He tried to stand, muttering, "That's fake. It's edited." But the video continued, showing him forging Walter's signature, time-stamped and clear. There was no denying it. Then my father's image returned, looking directly into the camera. "Integrity defines legacy. Leah, the company and my name belong to you." The words landed like thunder. I didn't move, didn't speak. Around us, the relatives began murmuring, some shaking their heads, others whispering how long they'd suspected something was wrong. Cole's mask cracked completely. He slammed his hand on the table, papers scattering across the floor. "You'll regret this," he hissed, but the room had already turned on him. I watched him storm out, shoulders hunched, pride shattered. Mr. Rennick turned to me with quiet respect. "It's official, Ms. Drayton. You're the rightful heir." I nodded once. There was no satisfaction in winning, only the calm that comes when truth finally silences the lies. My father's name was clear again, and Cole's empire of deceit had collapsed under the weight of his own greed. The silence after it all ended felt almost unreal. I sat there, staring at the papers spread across the table, my father's handwriting standing out at the bottom of the page. I trust you. Those 3 words were all I had left of him, but they felt heavier than the entire inheritance. For so long I'd believed he'd died disappointed in me. Hearing those words, reading them in his hand, changed something deep inside. He hadn't just wanted revenge, he'd wanted redemption, for our name, for our family, for me. I signed the documents, making everything official. I didn't keep all of it, I couldn't. I gave a large share to the caretakers and employees my father had ignored, the people who had worked in silence while our family tore itself apart. The rest I used to rebuild what Cole's greed destroyed. He vanished after the truth came out. No calls, no apologies, just silence. And maybe that was the real ending. As I left the estate, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away and choosing peace over revenge? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.